Just now, a stunning and heartbreaking private letter that André Rieu wrote to his kid has made public and enduring. The King of Waltz shares secrets, regrets, and a farewell wish in it, opening his heart like never before. Why did he conceal it? What impact will this have on his legacy? You will have a completely different perspective on André and his son by the end of this film, so stay tuned. An old letter. There was no announcement. There was no press release. It was something much more strong and much more intimate. After years of concealment, André Rieu's handwritten letter was eventually made public by his son Pierre. Not because it was a secret, but because the moment had never been appropriate until now. The letter had been kept secret for a long time, hidden in a drawer between old tour notes and private documents. Pierre, who was clearly upset, clarified that his father wrote the letter at a challenging time in his life, one that was full of fatigue, doubt, and introspection. And it became evident why he waited when he eventually made it public. The letter is heartfelt, honest, and unvarnished. Everyone was taken aback by the opening line. "My only hope is you." Those were not desperate remarks said by a parent to his son. They were about leaving a legacy, about love, and about giving someone more than just memories. They were about giving someone purpose. Fans were seeing more than just personal thoughts as they perused the letter. They were entering a holy dialogue between a parent and his offspring, one that is both vulnerable and full of pride. That was further demonstrated by the letter's subsequent events. The last wish of a father. It became evident, as the letter progressed, that this was more than a reflection or a farewell. It was a message of purpose, a father's final plea for continuity rather than pity. André Rieu had dedicated his life to creating something beautiful, a musical career, a global family, and a sound that resonated with people from all walks of life. "When I'm gone, I'm concerned about what will happen to all I've created." He wasn't merely discussing recordings or performances. He was discussing the essence of it all, the fervor, the energy, and the conviction that music should be enjoyable rather than a chore. He calls Pierre something outstanding in the letter because of this. "You serve as a link between the future of the world and my past." There was no pressure. It was faith. André wasn't requesting that his youngster emulate him. He was requesting that he preserve the emotion, the heart, and the humanity that go into the waltz. In many respects, André's last wish was to know that his work would continue to change lives, rather than to be recognized for his celebrity. As the letter goes on, we begin to realize how much of André's life and hardships went into creating the Johann Strauss Orchestra, as we know it today. "I used my hands to construct this." André discusses his empire, which most people only view from the outside, in this section of the letter. The lights, the costumes, the lovely music. But there was something rather distinct at the heart of it all. Pure belief, modest beginnings, and hard labor. He characterizes starting the Johann Strauss Orchestra as a risk and a wild desire, rather than a glamorous career move. He began with only 12 musicians, a dilapidated tour bus, tiny venues, no sponsors, and no safety net. He writes, "I built this with my hands, and I did it with heart." The most important thing, he says, is that heart. The orchestra was more than a company. It was a family, a community, and a living manifestation of his spirit. However, André added a caution as well, which reverberates throughout the text. Honor must be used to protect what is created with the heart. He was worried that everything may turn into simply another brand or product in the wrong hands. Therefore, he pleaded with Pierre to recall the orchestra's unique qualities. The connection to people, the happiness on their faces, and the tears shed during a waltz are more important than the stage's size, or the quantity of tickets sold. Because losing his stardom wasn't the worst thing that could happen to André. It was becoming meaningless. At that point, the letter starts to become much more intimate. Behind the velvet drape, André Rieu has been a representation of grace, beauty, and perfection throughout the most of his career. However, he pulls aside the curtain in this section of the letter to reveal what life was actually like backstage. He acknowledges reality. Not all of it was as glamorous as it appeared. "People don't see the sleepless nights, but they see smiles," he writes. André talks on the unspoken costs, the strain of traveling all the time, the anxiety of disappointing supporters, and the burden of always being the one to motivate. He struggled with persistent stress, sleeplessness, and periods of extreme emotional exhaustion. In hotel rooms, he felt isolated. He didn't attend family birthdays. Years of normal living were lost to him. He claims that music served as both his release and his captivity. He claims that it provided him everything. However, it frequently required everything as well. He regrets how frequently he allowed the music to take precedence over everything else. but he doesn't regret the music itself. In addition to reflecting on the past, his letter reveals a guy who is grieving, reflecting, and attempting to come to terms with his decisions. Then he talks about an event that made everything different. The one thing he loved most, performing, almost vanished from his life forever in 2010. The sickness he attempted to conceal. André Rieu describes a night that almost ended his career in the letter's most exposed passage to date. The time was 3 in the morning. Belgium was where he was. The floor seemed to have disappeared beneath him as he awoke. The world whirled wildly. He was unable to walk normally. It seemed to him like a stroke or worse. He wrote, "I felt like I was dying. It was all upside down." He ultimately received a diagnosis of vestibular neuritis, a disorder that impairs coordination and balance. It's particularly inhumane to someone who thrives on movement and music. André was unable to execute. He was unable to stand for very long. Whole tours had to be canceled. He also wasn't sure if he would return for a time. "In every way possible, I lost my footing. It was more than just physical," he claimed. His identity was shaken by it. The world seemed to have stopped for a man who lived for the stage and never had a sick day. But at the time, he concealed the whole truth. He wanted no one to be concerned, didn't want to come across as weak. Years later, he told Pierre about it so that Pierre wouldn't make the same error, and would know when to ask for help and when to take a break. As the letter progresses, it becomes clear how much André feared this may occur again, and how uncannily accurate his worry was. A foreboding caution. André Rieu had already written about it in his letter, years before it actually occurred. There was one really eerie line. "The day my body betrays the stage is something I dread." Not that he was being dramatic. He was telling the truth. Something was shifting inside of him, an unsaid warning that the speed he had been living by for decades would eventually catch up with him. And it did. André passed out in 2024 while on a much-anticipated trip back to Mexico. Following 2 outstanding performances, the excitement was replaced with a sense of urgency. His body was pushed to its breaking point by a high temperature, extreme fatigue, and Mexico City's harsh elevation. What could have been a victory lap became a disastrous retreat. Pierre was present. He witnessed everything. And he recalled the contents of that letter as he hurried his father onto a plane to return home. It was more than a prophecy. André had been muttering this request for years. Before it's too late, slow down. The tour was canceled. The fans were devastated. The Rieu family, however, had been rocked more than that. There was more to the Mexican collapse than a health concern. It served as a wake-up call, making everyone in André's immediate vicinity consider the costs of living this life. Then a second line from the letter came brutally true. "You have to know when to give up." André Rieu could fill arenas in a matter of minutes during the height of his career. He might enter a stage and be treated like a king or queen. However, the scene beyond the curtain appeared quite different. "You must know when to stop," he stated bluntly to Pierre in the letter. He acknowledged that he could hardly stand during those last few hours in Mexico. But it's not when the crowd falls silent, but when your body talks louder than they ever could. His legs trembled. He was having trouble breathing. "I can't do this anymore," he muttered softly to Marjorie backstage. André had always been a firm believer in perseverance, playing with the flu, traveling without sleep, and smiling despite discomfort. However, his body overrode his will this time. Pierre is urged in his letter to avoid making the same error twice. He wrote, "Don't let the cheers drown out your heartbeat." It was more than just counsel. He was admitting his own limitations. André explained to Pierre that perseverance isn't always a sign of courage. It can occasionally be found by taking a step back. As we read the letter more closely, we learn still another reason why he was so adamant about spreading these facts. For this was not the first time he had to stop due to pain. The unspoken sorrow of 2016. When André abruptly canceled a number of gigs in 2016, fans were left perplexed and anxious. Rumors are quick to spread. Was he ill once more? Was there a problem? Many others anticipated the worst because the official story was ambiguous. The reality, however, was far more intimate. André had lost a family member, a close member of his orchestra. The sadness was too much to bear. Additionally, he discloses in the letter what he was unable to say at the time. "I was not comforted by the music, not at that moment. I was shattered. I tried to take up the baton to lead through the sadness," he wrote. The stage, however, seemed empty. The songs sounded hollow. He required time to grieve, not to physically recuperate. Up until today, he has never disclosed the agony to the public. It was a side of André that the world hardly saw. And he wrote to Pierre, "The show must not always go on. Sometimes it must stop so you can breathe, cry, and come back whole. The man is human, wounded, and vulnerable, not the performance. André's sensitivity persisted in the letter's subsequent section, where he described the orchestra as something much more significant than a collection of musicians. Look after the family. The Johann Strauss Orchestra is regarded by everyone as a stunning, top-tier group. André Rieu, however, sees it as something very else. He refers to them as my musical bloodline in his letter. These are more than simply co-workers. They are like a second family to him, people he has trusted through every victory and hardship, grieved with in dressing rooms, and laughed with on lengthy bus rides. Pierre is reminded by André that leading involves more than just playing the instrument. It has to do with taking care of people. He states, treat them like kins, not staff, because they are. Rehearsals that become therapy sessions, anniversaries celebrated in hotel lobbies. The road and silent nods of support before a difficult performance are all recollections he relates. These weren't merely shows, their lives were shared. André's point is obvious. Notes and applause are not what make a legacy. It is composed of people, love, and loyalty. Furthermore, no amount of accomplishment will be worthwhile if that love is lost. The message becomes more about life and less about giving advice as it gets softer. André starts talking about discovering simple things that keep your spirit alive even when the stage goes dark, as well as about healing and joy. Allow the music to soothe you. André discusses peace in the letter's concluding section, which is surprising coming from a man who is well known for his enormous productions and international renown. He talks about the peaceful times that aided in his recovery from fatigue, illness, and heartbreak. Baking is among the most unexpected things. He wrote, find your rhythm in flower and melody when you are lost. With stages shuttered and tours halted during the pandemic lockdowns, André took solace in his kitchen, kneading bread, watching baking lessons, and using his hands to create something for joy rather than praise. He exhorts Pierre to remember the importance of joy in and of itself. He cautions that this work will require everything. Thus, don't forget to save anything for yourself. He claims that music may heal, but only if it is performed out of love rather than pressure. Because music makes him feel alive, he wants his son to continue performing if he so chooses, not because he has to. A significant turning point in the letter is this change in tone from the somber weight of legacy to the peaceful pleasures of life. André's subsequent admission to his kid may be the most candid he has ever made. Be better, don't be me. André stops giving advice and begins to express remorse as his letter approaches its most sensitive passages. Here he shares with Pierre something surprising, unvarnished, and profoundly human. The words, don't be me, he writes, improve. This has nothing to do with touring or music. It's about life and the times André lost out on, while pursuing a greater goal. He admits to putting the next show ahead of his own health, and occasionally his own family, playing through fevers, and ignoring burnout symptoms. This is not written with resentment by André. He writes it with the honesty and love of a man who gave his everything to the world, yet occasionally neglected to save enough for himself. He admits, I missed too many dinners. When I should have been at home, I continued to play. I neglected to take a nap. He does not want Pierre to carry the torch in the same manner. It's to illuminate his own route, one that is paved with more self-awareness, stronger limits, and improved balance. He tells his kid that if you lose yourself in the process, legacy is meaningless. Knowing when to step back and when to contribute is the key to real success. Legacy is nothing if love doesn't come first. André's remarks go beyond simply passing the torch. A father's greatest wish is for his son to carry the music, while letting go of the burden. In the following sentence, he returns the attention to home. Mastery is at home. Remember that always. André Rieu never really left one area behind. Despite all the airports, standing ovations, international stages, and flashing cameras, the little Dutch city of Maastricht is where he breathed his first breath, heard music for the first time, and eventually established the foundations of an empire that spread far beyond its cobblestone streets. André revisits those peaceful beginnings in his letter, at least in his memory. Additionally, he tells Pierre that every melody leads back home, regardless of how far the sound travels. He writes, the world will cheer. Only Maastricht, though, will be there to greet you. He's not merely referring to a location. He is discussing an emotion. The town square's golden radiance on a warm evening. The sounds of violins and neighbors laughing reverberate throughout the streets. The silence that descends on the audience right before the opening note. André claims that those times constitute the essence of all he created. He advises Pierre to think back to the early days, when the orchestra performed for everyone who would listen, not when they packed stadiums, when the audience was small and the cheers were from people who knew their names rather than thousands. He claims that it was in that square that he transitioned from student to artist. For André, mastery is more than just his hometown. He uses it like a compass. When the fame becomes too much, it's the place that keeps him grounded. The location where music isn't only played, it has been lived. He acknowledges that success on a global scale can be blinding. You tend to forget where you started when you're in the spotlight, and he gently cautions Pierre not to allow it to occur in this section of the letter. Never forget the stage you built with your own hands, no matter how big it is, he advises. It serves as a reminder to preserve not just the music's image, but also its essence. To maintain a connection to something genuine, something that is important without cameras or praise. André sees mastery as more than just geography. It serves as his life's emotional and creative cornerstone. He grew up in the metropolis, which also served as his inspiration and source of bravery to dream further. And now, as he slows down, it's the location he returns to, both physically and spiritually. And that's where this letter's portion goes. A change to something softer, something slower, after the years of non-stop touring. André is learning how to adapt to the passing of time. However, he hopes that one thing never changes, regardless of how much does. Pierre's relationship with mastery. Because André is aware that eventually the world will move on, the stage will dim, and the curtain will fall. But home will always be mastery, 1 year at a time. By this stage of the letter, it's evident that André Rieu is learning how to age gracefully, in addition to bidding adieu to youth. The letter reveals a new motto for a man who used to plan 10 years in advance. Take each year as it comes. I'm over the lengthy tours, he writes. No more South America, perhaps not even Australia. He doesn't say it dejectedly, he says it calmly, because it doesn't matter how far he goes at this point. It's the significance of the times when he does. Each performance is more intimate. Each encore is more valuable. Every choice is more deliberate. André acknowledges that he is tired, and that his body no longer recovers as quickly as it once did. Instead of lamenting it, he has learned to respect it, pay attention to it, and build his life around the things that continue to provide him with vitality, a sense of community, creativity, and a sense of home. I'll keep playing until my hands stop responding, he says. But I'll decide where and when. The most significant change in the entire letter is this new way of thinking about life: one concert, one season, one heartbeat at a time. André is not fading, as evidenced by this. He's paying attention. One of the document's most poignant themes follows from its clarity. The encore is you. Every outstanding performance has a sluggish moment in the song. There is a tiny dimness in the lights. Silence falls after the last note. The audience waits in the hopes of one final encore, one more song, and one more moment. There is no music or cheering during that moment. In André Rieu's letter to his son, just paper, ink, and the silent voice of a parent disclosing his innermost thoughts. All of the experiences, guidance, victories, and errors. They disappear until there is just a single line left. You are my final act, my encore. It's not just lovely. It's eerie, sincere, and intensely intimate. André tells Pierre that his biggest accomplishment isn't a concert or a tour in that one paragraph, which serves as the emotional high point of everything he has written. It's him. André is not transferring ownership of a company. He is leaving behind a legacy, a way of life, and a belief in the power of music to uplift, heal, and unite people. Pierre is now the living embodiment of everything he has produced, including every standing ovation, every orchestra member who became family, and every tear shed during a waltz. What's really unique about this section of the letter, though, is what André says with permission, rather than under duress. He urges his youngster to be himself, to discover his own rhythm and melody, compose your own music. But he also provides one important reminder: lead in your own voice. It's the heart behind it, not the note. André worries that sometimes people forget that portion. Being flawless is not important. It's all about being authentic, about making the most of every moment you spend with people, whether it be in life or on stage. It is not anticipated that Pierre will succeed his father. André is clear about it. He's not interested in a duplicate. He is looking for a fresh chapter in a lengthy saga, a continuation. One that retains the same soul yet develops in different ways. The letter now becomes more than just a piece of advice. It becomes a blessing, a metaphorical handoff. André is no longer the main character. Now he's just behind the curtain, grinning and quietly proudly observing. He says, "You are my last performance, my encore." That line, however, is not a conclusion. It's just the beginning. For all those who have followed André's journey, not only Pierre, friends, fans, and musicians are all welcome to see what happens next. Because when a performer passes away, their legacy continues. It endures in those who continue to feel it. Every person impacted by the music, every new note, every new smile. This is the moment that lingers as André's letter draws to a close. The silent promise that lingers in your mind long after the music has stopped playing. That the encore is just getting started. The legacy endures. The emotion intensifies in the letter's last few words. Awards and tours are not something that André Rieu writes about. He makes no mention of accomplishments. Rather, he concentrates on the next step. For the world his music touched, not for himself. After reading the letter, Pierre revealed to the public that it completely altered his life, his comprehension of himself as well as his father. It gave him a sense of direction, a calling, and a responsibility that he had never completely grasped until he saw those words. The music isn't going anywhere, even though André is taking a step back. It's changing. Like a torch, it's being lovingly and carefully passed around. This legacy also includes the fans, because it's not just his son who needs to hear André's message. It's for everyone. "I only perform music that makes me feel something. The letter is over. It's your time now." It's not a loud last note. It's silent. Personal reminder that one man's legacy is not enough. It has to do with the lives he has impacted. The love that endures beyond the last curtain and the music we remember. The letter is now public knowledge. They have told the story. The stage is now a part of the future. The missing letter from André Rieu is more than just a message. Father to son has carried on this tradition. Please enjoy the video, subscribe for more, and leave a comment if this story resonated with you. We appreciate your attendance and participation in this significant event in music history.